campaign finance than it was before. Why? Because just about everything good and just about everything good within the package was struck down by the Supreme Court, leaving only the things that would only make things better if the good things were left in, and will make things worse when the good things are taken out. Are you depressed yet? Oh, and then the sixth stage is then you make a judgment. You make a judgment about which reforms, which reform you're actually going to support, and how you're going to support it. Now, usually we're talking about fairly small improvements, because usually in normal politics, with respect to any reform, but even with respect to any government, they're not going to make things much, much better. They might make things somewhat better. I've had, for the last 15 years of my life, I've had at least one young child in the house. And one thing you learn if you've got at least one young child in the house is that it's quite difficult. It's much more difficult to build things up and make them better than it is to absolutely destroy them. A 3-year-old can destroy just about everything in your house in about half an hour. It takes months to recreate it, right? Making things better is difficult, and most politicians have very limited space for action. They've got quite stark feasibility constraints. Obama, nobody would have chosen to come into office in January 2009. That's, you know, if you were thinking about, oh, I want a poison chalice, that's what you would adopt. If he succeeds in being re-elected, it will be astonishing, because really nobody elected in who took office in January 2009 should be capable of being re-elected 4 years later, in my opinion. Things were terrible, and things were not going to get much better, and things were going to look pretty bad at the end of those 4 years. Okay. That's the first slide. I've got 40, so we'll be here a long time. The 40 wasn't a joke, that the long time was. So we're thinking about broadly speaking education reform, or education policy. And I say broadly speaking advisedly. Well, so we need to think about what values are at stake. What values should we be thinking about promoting? And I've just... I'm not going to argue for any of these. I think that each one of these values, you might interpret it somewhat differently than I do, and then